Today, I'm going to share with you the 5 most common questions I get asked as someone who helps other people start private practices. I'm also going to share with you All right, so the first question I get asked is how many referrals do you get? And people are usually asking this because they're concerned about whether or not private practice is going to be feasible. Are they going to get enough clients? Will they generate enough income to support themselves? Could they leave their current job? People are really trying to figure out if private practice is even doable financially. And obviously getting referrals is how you build your practice. That's it, right? Having clients means you have a private practice. And people may be tempted to answer this question straight up and say, hey, I get this many referrals per week, or I get this many referrals, or I have this many referrals. However, the question is not that simple. It's actually quite complicated, and there's many factors that go into how many referrals someone might have. So to ask any other therapist how many referrals they get is not going to be sufficient. You could either walk away feeling really scared or really bad or whatever the case may be. So there's a couple of things we have to think about. And the first is that you can't compare to other people in private practice. That doesn't mean that you can't learn from other people, but comparison should absolutely not be the primary way in which you go ahead making decisions, because everyone in private practice is different. So if we break down the question, how many referrals do you get? Then we also have to ask, well, where do your referrals come from? Has this person networked a lot? Do they have a strong network already from years and years in the field? Is this someone who has built up a niche or has an expertise in a particular field? Right. So for example, if I ask my colleague who's been in private practice for 15 years and who specializes in something like OCD, how many referrals they get, and they say they get 20 referrals per week, and I'm just starting out and I'm learning about my niche and I'm trying to develop a specialty, this question is not going to be comparable. Referrals for this person who has all the expertise and the experience are clearly going to be higher than the person who has minimal experience and is working to build their niche, right? So you see that we can't just ask this question. A better question to ask is, where do your referrals come from? Right? I think in that way, you start to get an idea of where someone's referrals come from. Or the other question you could also ask is, why do you get that amount of referrals? So if there's a clinician who has lots of referrals, they might say, hey, I do marketing, or I have a specialty. I think the why question is going to be much more important to ask, because once you ask the why question, then you can determine, well, what can I do then to help build my referral base? Is it working on developing a niche or a specialty? Maybe that person actually pays for Facebook ads and things like that. Maybe you can learn from that. Instead of asking how many referrals do you get, you can ask that question in conjunction with how do you get that many referrals? That's the why question. And I think from there, you're going to have a much more well-rounded answer, which will then help you take that information and translate it to your own experience. So learn what you can from others. Also know that your experience is unique. It's going to take time. It's going to take patience. The second question I get asked a lot is, how do I grow my caseload? And this is typically asked by people, again, who are just starting out. Maybe they have a couple referrals coming in, or they have a small caseload and they're trying to build up. And building a caseload is one of the things that does take time, and it's going to be different for everyone. I know I said that before, but it is true. It does take time. It's going to take patience, and eventually your caseload will grow. That being said, there are things that you can do right now to help grow your caseload and to make the process go faster. And the first one I would think about is marketing. If you're in private practice, you've now stepped into the world of marketing as well. So you need to market your practice, your services, and what you do to the people that you're trying to provide services to. You're no longer part of a big hospital system or some sort of organization. If you're in private practice, most likely it is just you. So now you have to get the word out about your practices, your business, your services, so that people know that you exist. Now, of course, there's Psychology Today, there's Alma, Headway, these different directories, and that is one form of marketing. However, you can explore other forms as well. You can do Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads. You can do flyers and business cards. You can do networking around your neighborhood with different doctors and things like that. There's tons of ways that we can do this, and I've actually made a whole bunch of videos about marketing. I'll leave those down below if you want to check those out. Marketing is one way you can begin growing your caseload faster. Another question I get asked is, do I think it's possible to go all cash pay? Now, a couple things about this particular question. I do think it is possible to go all cash pay. However, that comes with a few caveats. The first is that companies like Alma and Headway, who are helping therapists get credentialed with insurance companies, have made it much harder to go cash pay. And this is because there's many more therapists and mental health providers who now accept insurance. Prior to Alma and Headway and that kind of thing, it was much rarer to find mental health providers that took insurance. So a lot of people were just cash pay. That is all changing, which I do think is a good thing. There are more people who can have more access to quality mental health care. That being said, I do think if you're someone who's interested in going all cash pay, then it is possible. And there's a few things that can help you do that. The first is to have a niche or a specialty. So if you're the only, and this is just hypothetical, but if you're the only therapist in your area who specializes in OCD for teenagers, well then obviously people are going to be willing to pay for your services because there's really only one person in town who can do it. Now again, you also have to think about your overall vision for your practice. Do you want to be all cash pay? What does it mean to be all cash pay? And I'm not here to talk to people about their visions and their values and things like that. However, it's something to consider. And then second, if you're going to be cash pay, most likely, unless you already have a very strong referral base and a network, it's going to take you longer than most people to build up a full caseload. And this is because there is more access to therapists and mental health providers who take insurance. People also often ask me if they need to establish a business entity. And to put it simply, you do not need a business entity like a PLLC or an LLC or a PC or anything like that to begin private practice. Do I think it's helpful for the long run? I personally think it is helpful to have a business entity established for the long run in case you ever want to do a group practice or you ever want to expand and grow, then having a business entity is going to be helpful. They do take a little while to establish. They can take 5, 6, 7 months, something like that. And also when you get busier, it does take time to establish these things. So if you're thinking about growing or expanding at some point, you might want to just start off with the business entity, the PLLC, the PC, that kind of thing right off the bat. However, it is not required. So if you're just starting out in private practice and that seems a little bit too overwhelming for you and you don't want to get all involved in business entities, or if you're someone who just wants to stay a solo practice, you can do something called a DBA, which is a doing business as. And technically, I do not think that this is a business entity. I was told that you can get this done and established within 24 hours. I have a link down below to some more information. And if you want to know more about establishing business entities, there's a link down below to another video I made all about that. And then people also ask me, well, what exactly do I need to get started seeing my first client? And I'm going to talk to you about what you would need as a solo practitioner. If you're looking for a group practice, I have other videos about that. I'll leave links down below. But if you're looking for what exactly it is you need to begin seeing your first client, there are a few things. First and foremost, you need malpractice insurance. This is going to be pretty much your only line of defense if you get sued for malpractice. So you are going to want to have malpractice insurance established. Second, you need all of your intake packet established. These are going to be things like your notice of privacy practices, your policies, your informed consents, all that kind of stuff. And you can talk to a lawyer about this. You can find a lot of templates online. I would always recommend speaking to an attorney. You can purchase these packets from attorneys as well. To me, that's the safest and most secure way to go about it because it's been vetted. But you'll need your entire intake packet and all the necessary forms to see your first client. You're going to need a HIPAA compliant audio video platform. That could be something like the HIPAA compliant Zoom. You can use the platform that's built into your EHR. So I use Simple Practice. They have a platform called Telehealth. This is HIPAA compliant. But at the end of the day, you need the HIPAA compliant audio video platform to see clients in a HIPAA compliant way. You will also need a HIPAA compliant way of communicating with clients as well. So this could either be something like the HIPAA compliant Google Workspace. Again, in your EHR, some of them have messengers built in. So Simple Practice has a HIPAA compliant messenger, but you do need a HIPAA compliant form of communication to speak to clients. Also, you will need a HIPAA compliant way of keeping documentation. Most people are going to look for an electronic medical record or electronic health record. This is an EHR, EMR, whatever you want to call it. And this is a place where you can store documents, keep documents in HIPAA compliant way. Again, I've mentioned it 20 times already, but I use Simple Practice. This is an EHR, HIPAA compliant, designed for therapists. It works really, really well. You'll also need an ability to accept payments from clients as well. So when you see a client, you're going to need a way to charge that client for your services. You can use the built-in platform that comes with your EHR or EMR. You can use something like Ivy Pay. There's a whole bunch of payment methods out there. You're also going to need to have knowledge about a couple of things. You're going to need knowledge about your particular state's telehealth laws. So every state has different rules and regulations about telehealth. Where do you need to be sitting as the therapist? Where does the client need to be sitting? Is there flexibility? I will say this is a fairly new topic, and so things are always changing. But before you log in with your first client, especially if it's virtual, look up the telehealth laws of your particular state. Similarly, your licensing board, whether you're a social worker or a mental health counselor, is going to have its own rules and regulations as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are pretty much the required things that are needed to see your first client. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you learned something. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you soon.